He looked away. It's complicated. That was it. That was the moment the bucket cracked. Not shattered, cracked. Hairline, but permanent. Complicated how? He rubbed his face. I don't know. She just gets me. I've gotten you since you were 16. I know. Then what's missing? He didn't say it, but I felt it. Novelty, space, freedom, something new. I haven't done anything, he added quickly, like that was the point. But you wanted to, I said. Silence. He didn't deny it. I felt something inside me collapse. Not dramatically, just quietly, like a building being emptied. That night, we slept in the same bed, but it felt like different continents. I stared at the window. It started raining, and for the first time, the sound didn't feel romantic. It felt mocking. Rain doesn't choose where it falls. It just falls. And maybe I had mistaken abundance for devotion. The next few days, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. Her eyes looked older, softer, scared. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just afraid of losing him, I was afraid of losing the version of myself that only existed inside us. And that fear, it kept me there longer than it should have, because even with the crack, even with the messages, even with the pause when I asked if he had feelings, I still wanted to believe the rain would choose me. But sometimes, it's already pouring somewhere else. The actual end of my marriage didn't happen in one explosive fight. It happened in a quiet, ordinary moment, which somehow made it worse. For 3 weeks after I found the messages, we existed in this strange limbo. He was still there, still sleeping beside me, still kissing my forehead before work, but it felt rehearsed, like muscle memory. We had one more big conversation before everything collapsed. It was a Sunday afternoon. The house was silent, except for the hum of the dishwasher. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, when he walked in and said, almost casually, "We need to talk." Those 4 words. They don't prepare you for what's coming. They just warn you that it won't be good. I nodded. Okay. He sat across from me, not beside me. Across. Distance where closeness used to live. He looked tired. Guilty. But not devastated. And that's when I knew. "I've been thinking," he started. "A lot." My throat felt tight. About her? He didn't answer right away, and I realized I was holding my breath. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said, finally. I blinked. What does that mean? We've been together since we were kids. I don't know who I am outside of us. I felt something crack inside my chest. "You've had 10 years to figure that out." "I know." "Why now?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I met someone who made me realize there's more to me than just being your husband." There it was. Not an affair. Not technically, but something worse. He wasn't just attracted to her. He was curious about a life without me, and curiosity is dangerous. "Are you in love with her?" I asked. The words came out steadier than I felt. He swallowed. "I don't know." That was my answer, because when someone doesn't immediately say no, it means yes. Tears welled up, but I refused to let them fall. "So what are you saying?" He took a deep breath. "I think we need space." Space. 10 years of shared oxygen, and suddenly he couldn't breathe? I laughed. It wasn't funny. It was disbelief. "You said your love was the rain." His eyes flickered. "That was real." "Was it?" "Yes." "Then why does it feel like you've been pouring it somewhere else?" Silence. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just looked conflicted. And I realized something in that moment that hurt more than betrayal. He wasn't choosing her, he was choosing himself. And I had never learned how to choose me. "I don't want to hurt you," he said quietly. "But you already are." My voice broke then, finally. "I built my entire life around us." "I didn't ask you to." No, he didn't ask, but he benefited. He enjoyed it. He leaned into it. Until he didn't. "So what?" I whispered. "You're just leaving?" "I think we need time apart to figure out who we are." "And if you figure out you like who you are with her?" He didn't answer, and that silence was the end. He moved into a friend's apartment that week. No screaming, no smashed dishes, just boxes, quietly packed. When he carried the last one to his car, he hesitated. "I'm sorry." I nodded, but I didn't hug him. I couldn't, because hugging him would have felt like begging, and I refused to beg. When the door closed behind him, the house didn't feel empty. It felt hollow, like something had been scooped out of it. The first night alone was unbearable. I slept on his side of the bed, then switched to mine, then the couch. I cried in waves, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Grief is strange when the person is still alive, because technically he wasn't gone. He was just somewhere else, probably texting her. That thought made me physically ill. A week later, I saw them. I wasn't looking for them. I was picking up coffee downtown when I saw his car parked outside a cafe, and through the window, I saw him, laughing, leaning forward, engaged, the way he used to look at me. She reached across the table and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. That was it. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped. Not in rage, in clarity. He wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He was exploring, and I was home, waiting. That night he called. "I wanted to check on you." The audacity. "I'm fine," I said. "I know this is hard. I saw you." Silence. "Where?" "At the cafe." Another pause. "I didn't plan that. I'm sure. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" He sighed. "I care about her." There it was, out loud, clean, sharp. "I don't want to lose you," he added quickly. I laughed again. "You already did." After that, something shifted inside me. The crying didn't stop immediately, but it changed. It wasn't about losing him anymore. It was about finding me. I started therapy. At first, I just vented. Then I unpacked. Why had I wrapped my identity so tightly around him? Why did his attention determine my worth? Why did his curiosity feel like my failure? One day in therapy, my counselor asked, "What if this isn't about you not being enough? What else would it be? What if it's about him needing something new to feel alive?" That hit, because I realized something uncomfortable. I had been comfortable, content, stable, but maybe he mistaken stability for stagnation, and instead of communicating that, he chased novelty. That wasn't my fault, and for the first time, I believed that. One morning, about a month after he left, I woke up and didn't immediately feel like I couldn't breathe. I made coffee, sat by the window, watched the rain fall, and instead of thinking about him, I thought about myself. What did I want? Not what we wanted, not what he wanted. Me. It was terrifying, but also freeing, because for 10 years I had been part of a pair. Now I was singular, and maybe that wasn't a curse. Maybe it was an awakening. He texted occasionally, checking in, guilty, hovering, keeping a foot in the door, but I stopped responding immediately.
Sometimes I didn't respond at all, not to punish him, but because I wasn't waiting anymore. And one night, lying in bed alone, I realized something that changed everything. I wasn't broken. I was finally awake. The rain had stopped, and instead of waiting for it to start again, I started building something of my own. Part 4, the comeback and emotional justice, will complete the transformation, the role reversal, and the final boundary moment. Let me know when you're ready.
The first canvas was messy, emotional, chaotic, but it felt honest. Therapy got deeper. I stopped talking about him as much and started talking about me. Why I tolerated emotional withdrawal. Why I equated closeness with safety. Why his validation felt like oxygen. And then something subtle happened. I stopped checking his social media, stopped wondering where he was, stopped imagining them together. Not because it didn't sting, but because I was too busy rebuilding. 3 months after he left, I saw him for the first time in person again. It was at a mutual friend's birthday party. I almost didn't go, but I refused to shrink my life around his absence. When I walked in, conversations paused for half a second. I felt it. He was standing near the kitchen, and when his eyes landed on me, he froze. Not because I looked dramatically different, but because I looked steady, calm. There's a power in not looking shattered. He walked over slowly. Hey, hey. Up close, he looked thinner, less certain. How have you been? He asked. Good, I said, and I meant it. He glanced around awkwardly. You look different. I feel different. He nodded like that made sense. Can we talk sometime? He asked quietly. I studied him. This was the moment. The old version of me would have said yes immediately, grateful for the attention, hungry for reconciliation. But I wasn't her anymore. What do you want to talk about? I asked. He hesitated. He hesitated. I made a mistake. There it was, the line I used to fantasize about hearing. And yet, it didn't land the way I thought it would. Jessica and I, he exhaled. It didn't work. Of course it didn't. Novelty rarely survives reality. I thought what I was feeling was something big, he continued, but it wasn't. I stayed quiet. I miss you. Silence stretched between us. Not heavy, just honest. I miss us, he added. Us. That word used to own me. Now it just sounded familiar, comfortable, but not necessary. I've done a lot of thinking, he said. I realized I was restless. I projected that onto us. You didn't communicate that, I replied calmly. I know. You chose curiosity over commitment. He winced slightly. You're right. That was new. Accountability. I still love you, he said. And for a moment, I believed him. Because love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it just gets buried under ego, under immaturity, under fear. But love isn't enough. Not anymore. I believe you, I said softly. His shoulders relaxed slightly. But I love me more now. That sentence felt like stepping into sunlight. He stared at me. I don't want to lose you forever. You already did when you decided to see what else was out there instead of protecting what was here. His eyes softened. Regret is quiet. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. And he was full of it. Can we at least try? He asked. I thought about it. Not emotionally, logically. Could I rebuild trust with someone who paused before saying he loved me? Could I forget the cafe window, the messages, the "it's complicated"? No, because the real damage wasn't her. It was the fact that he left emotionally before he left physically, and I deserved someone who chose me without hesitation. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, but it's not me anymore. He nodded slowly, and for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel abandoned. I felt powerful, not in a loud way, in a grounded way. We didn't hug goodbye. We didn't cry. We just existed in that moment as two people who once shared everything, now sharing nothing but history. When I got home that night, I stood by the window. It was raining. Of course it was. I watched the drops slide down the glass, and I smiled because I finally understood something. Rain doesn't belong to the bucket. It never did. The bucket doesn't need rain to exist. It just needs to hold itself. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be filled. I was already whole. How many of us confuse longevity with loyalty? How many of us stay because history feels heavier than truth? We tell ourselves, it's been 10 years. We grew up together. We've built too much. But what if time isn't proof of depth? What if it's just proof of comfort? How many red flags do we paint pink because we're afraid of starting over? And how often do we lose ourselves trying to be someone's safe place without realizing we stopped being our own? He wasn't evil. He wasn't a villain. He was restless. And I was afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of rewriting my identity. Afraid that without him, I'd be empty. But here's the truth. The scariest thing isn't losing someone. It's staying when you've already been emotionally left. So I'll ask you this. Are you in love, or are you just afraid to pour everything you've built into the unknown? Because sometimes the rain stops, and that's not a tragedy. Sometimes it's an invitation to build something that doesn't depend on anyone else's weather. If this story hit you, if you've ever loved someone since you were basically still a kid, if you've ever been the one waiting while they explored what else was out there, I want to hear from you. Would you have taken him back? Do you believe first loves deserve second chances? Or do you think once someone chooses curiosity over commitment, it's over? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is a space where your story matters. And if you're in the middle of your own heartbreak right now, stay. There's another story coming that might give you the clarity you didn't know you needed. Subscribe to the Breakup Stories, because sometimes hearing someone else survive it is the first step to surviving it yourself. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, fill your own bucket.